Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for subscribing, and if you're new to my channel, welcome. Please subscribe to my channel. And today we are going to be learning how to sew the sleeveless jacket, and it is our first sewing video, so let's get started. So I'm gonna head to trace out the jacket pattern for the notch collar jacket. So this is the pattern. This is what it looks like. Then I added seam allowance on both sides, half an inch. So this is the center, this is the center front, this is the side seam, this is the facing for the center front. While this is the back, center back, side seam for the center back. So this is our pattern, traced out pattern, cut out pattern. So now the pattern, I've cut the fabric, so this is what it looks like. I'm going to use to iron the interfacing on it. I use the paper stay because this is a sample. This is a sample jacket we're doing, so that's why I used paper stay. But we have different kind of interfacing. This is the stay. This is a cotton. While this one is referred to as the nylon stay. When you go to the market, those of us in Nigeria, I want call it the nylon stay. So this is the cotton. This comes in black and white. This also comes in, the cotton comes in black and white also. So if you need to make a jacket, I recommend you use this depending on the texture of the fabric, or this. So mostly use this for the jacket. This is what I usually use, but because I'm making a sample, that's why I had to use this. I usually use the cotton stay, black or white. So that being said, I need to cut the lining, and to cut the lining for this, because we have a sewing allowance here, we're going to cut it less than the usual amount of less than the original pattern. So what I usually do is to measure what I have here from the fold, measure. So I have 25 here, but I'm going to make it. So like I said, I have 25 here, but I'm going to make it 26 inches. 26 inches. Then for here, I'm going to measure. This is the facing for the lapel side. So from here, I'm going to measure also. I have 33 here, because when you sew, you're going to sew half inch here. So I'll make it, this is 32. From your half inch, or you can as well measure from here. And it's important you leave a bit of excess, because by the time we are done sewing, we still need to fold in some hair towards the around this hemline, folding, create a fold. I'll explain better when we get to that part. So this is 30. I'm making this 34 or 33.5. So I'll do the same thing to the back, but before then, this is the facing for this. Then we're going to measure what we have left here. This is 4 inches, so we're going to cut out 4 inches of the lining, the width, then with the same length also. So you can as well, as you can see, I've marked ½ inch here, but I'll leave 1 inch instead because of the fold I mentioned earlier after joining it. So from here, I'm going to measure what I have left. I'll practically use the same measurements that I'm using for this which is 33, 34. I'll use the same measurement. So 34 by 4 inches, but I'm making it 4.5 for the purpose of joining and having a bit of excess to trim out, because I don't want it equal. It's better I have excess than I'll trim it out to the shape that I want. So this is it. Then I'll do the same thing. So like I said, I'm going to do the same thing to the back, but before then, let me cut this particular one. So this is my 34 from the hem. This is my 34. Oh, this is 36 that I said. Well, this is it. I will just cut, but I'm not going to cut out. This is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to cut out the neckline. I prefer cutting it out like this, so by the time I'm done, I can reshape the neckline myself. I can reshape the neckline. Oh, okay. I think I just made a mistake. I'm supposed to have 4 inches here. I'm supposed to cut out 4 inches. Okay. So this is what I'm supposed to have. So this is how it's supposed to be. 4 inches. Okay. 4 inches. So just going to cut out this. Lining is already wasted, so I guess I'll just have to trim it from here. Measure my 4 inches and do a straight line. This is it. It's going to go like this. You make sure it is aligning by the time you're done joining. So I'm just cross-checking to see if this is going to be okay. So this is it. So this is how it's going to be. So I'll just join this straight line. So this is it. This is fine. So the next thing I'm going to do is to cut the side. So by the time I'm done with the side, I'll do the same thing to the front, to the back, I mean. So cutting it equal like this is do the same thing to the back. Like leaving it like this. I'm not leaving it so much. But I'm going to make this equal here. So this is this for the side front. So I'll do the same thing to the back. So as you can see, I've gone ahead to cut the back, and if you notice, I didn't cut out the neckline of the lining. I'll do that when I'm done stitching the lining to the lining, then the bodice to the bodice. Then I'll stitch it to the line and to the bodies. Then I'll stitch the lining to the bodies after joining this. That's when I'll cut out this neckline. So I will show us how we're going to do that. So this is the back. The next thing I'm going to do now is to go stitch this to this, then this to this. Do the same thing to the front, then I'll come back. Join the back and the lining of the back. I've done the same thing to the front. But before I join the lining of the front, like I said earlier, the excess that I left, I need to trim it. This is what I usually do. I will just join this, as you can see, join this to this. Then I'll now cross check by putting my pattern on it or using this center front. But because I've already joined it, I decided to use the pattern to cross check and trim out the excess so that everything will align before joining the sides panel. So I'll go ahead and join this side panel, then iron it and come back. So I've gone ahead to stitch the side panels of the lining to the center front of the facing. So the next thing I'm going to do is to measure. So what I did here, like I said before, we're going to have the facing is going to be shorter than the facing, or the lining itself is going to be shorter than the main body's block. So what I did is to mark half an inch which is where this folding, which is the exact measurement of the jacket. So this is what I did. This is it. I marked half an inch. Got the exact measurement, then marked another half. So basically I left 1 inch. So this is it. 1 inch allowance for everything on the facing. So in other words, you can as well come here and check what was reduced. I think this is a 0.5 inch, or you can do it in cm, 1.5 cm. That's what is left here. But the best way to do it, or the way I do it, is to just mark my hem allowance, mark the point where this is going to be. I get the exact point of the joining, then ½ inch for sewing, ½ inch for folding, because we're going to fold in the ½ inch when we're done joining it. I'll show us how to do that. So I'm going to stitch this like this. It's very important when you, as you can see, it's not equal because the lining is shorter. So I'm going to sew ½ an inch here, then I'll iron it. I'll show us what it looks like. Then this, I'm going to sew ½ an inch like this. Take it to the machine, place it like this. Make sure the joinings are lining center front, center back to center back of the lining. So I'm going to sew half an inch. So the other side of it, I'll do the same thing to this. Then I'll iron it. But before I join this to this, I'm just going to do one of it and show us what it looks like, because I need to fix a pocket and a patch pocket, and I need to get it ready. So this is what it's going to look like. I want a patch pocket, so I intend to fix it before fixing the lining. So I'm going to prepare it. So I have joined this. So before I go to iron it, I've already ironed one, but I want to show us how to iron it. So as you can see, this is the fold I was talking about. That's why I left that excess at the facing or the lining. So this is it. See the folding. And at the end of the day, make sure you fold at the end of the day so that you have the neckline of the facing and that of the bodies aligned. So this is it. And you also have to be very careful you don't fold in excess so that it doesn't start coming out by the time you're done sewing. So what I'm going to do now, go to the ironing board. It's not complicated. You make sure you arrange your neckline. You can pin it down, and this is it. It's equal. Then you take your iron, place it like this, and you iron. And this is it. By the time you iron, you have an equal neckline. The most important thing is for the necklines to be equal, the facing and the bodies to be equal. Then you do the same thing to that of the back. So this is I'm done ironing it. So this is the back. This is it. So it's very important when you're ironing, when you're folding in this particular place, the measurements are the same, so that when you join the fabric and the lining together, when you're joining them side by side, everything will align. So it's very important. So if at the end of the day the fold is about 3/4 inch, make sure you use 3/4 inch for the back also. So that's by the way. Then for the back, there's an interfacing at the back because of the fabric I'm working with. It's not all fabric you put full interfacing on. If the fabric is thick enough and requires less interfacing, what we usually do, a regular proper way of making the jacket. So what you do is to just put interfacing on this hemline in between the folds. You just cut like how many inches, maybe 1.5 or 2, and put in between this hemline down, then around the neck also. That's that. Then around the shoulder. I'm going to show us in another type of jacket. I'm making another type of jacket, how to do that. But because I'm using this Ankara fabric and I want it to have a little bit of weight, that's why I had to put this full interfacing. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to trim out the excess. So this is what the back looks like. Make sure this fold is properly set. You can go ahead and use your pin to secure it so that it doesn't pull out when you trim out the excess at the top, to avoid excess lining when you're done at the back. So go ahead and pin it, then set it properly. Set it properly, make sure it's relaxing. Then I'll go ahead and trim out the side and the neckline. This is the reason why I left the lining like this, so that I can trim. Make sure it's properly aligned. Very, very important. If not, it will start giving you issues. So this is it. I'm going to trim it out. Then the same thing, I'm going to do the same thing to the back. I'll do the same thing to the back, to the front. Trim out this excess. We already have an aligned neckline at the front, so I'll trim out this excess around the armhole and the side. Then after that, I'm going to fix the pocket. So this is the pocket, the patch pocket that I talked about before joining both sides. This is the patch pocket. I've gone ahead to design it the way I want it to be designed. So this is what I want. I'm going to place it. So in order to get where the pocket will be, what I did was to use my pattern, place it on my fabric. This is where the waistline is. So I used my chalk to mark where the waistline is, and I placed it. I took it to the mannequin to get the appropriate line to appropriate place to place it. So I placed it on my mannequin, and also there's a video on how to get the pockets, or how to determine the pocket width and the length, and how to place it. But I wanted an exaggerated pocket, even though it's not so big. This is how I want it, so I've placed it, and this is fine. But it's important you use your measure, your pattern. So this is my half length to waist measurement using Natalie Bray. This is it, length to waist measurement. I placed it exactly on the length to waist. This is the chalk line, so I pinned it. So I'm going to use the same measurement to place the pockets. Oh, before I do that, the pockets, I'm not done designing it. So the next thing I'm going to do is to finish designing it. So I've pleated this. This is where I pleated this fabric. I'm going to place this on it and finish the design. So I'll come back and show us how to do that, what it looks like. So this is it. Trim the excess of the back jacket. Then this is the pocket. I fixed it. This is what it looks like. Then the next thing I'm going to do now is to join this, turn this around like this. Then the place where you have this notch, you're going to mark half an inch. This is the notch. From here, you mark half an inch, the sewing allowance that you have. You mark half an inch and take it down like this. I already have a marked one. So this is what you're going to do. Take your pencil or your chalk. you mark. So this is it. You mark from this where this notch is. Mark, and when you get to this, you mark half an inch. Then when you get to the hem part, you have to make sure it's equal. When you're sewing, the sewing is going to be like this. You sew. The sewing is going to be like this, because at the end of the day, this has to align at the upper part, the neckline. So the hem side, like I said, when you mark your half an inch, you fold it like this, then you mark half an inch. So this is how you're sewing. You're sewing, this is it. It has to be equal here, like I said. So when you sew, you're gonna start from here and sew like this, straight down. So I'm gonna do that and show us what it looks like. So I'm done stitching the facing or the lapel side of the jacket. So the next thing I'm going to do is to notch. So I'm going to notch here. So that this place will relax. Then I'm going to slash in like this, not trimming it out. So now this way I'm going to pass my collar. Then a notch. And for this side, this is the hem side. This is what it looks like. I just notch so that this piece will be flat. Then I'm going to turn it and show you also what it looks like. Turn it. I'm still going to I'm going to use my seam ripper to bring this out. And the down part, the hem. So this is it. Careful so that it doesn't pierce through the fabric. So this is what it looks like. Use your hand to push this out. So the next thing I'm going to do is to baste this with thread and needle, but I am going to top stitch. So in order to know where to top stitch from, this is the lapel, this is where the break point is, break line or point. So this is where it's going to start from. So I'm going to top stitch. I'll start top stitching from here to the hem as far as my machine can get to to this white part, I'll top stitch. Wherever I get to, I'll top stitch, but I'll top stitch. I'll start top stitching from, this is it. So I'll start top stitching from here. So I'm going to do that, then I'll come back and show us how to baste it. So I'm done top stitching this side. So in order to baste it, this is it. Pass your thread into the needle. Then this is the side that's going to be showing. So this is the lapel. Why this is the inner? The inner side, the outer side, I mean, you use your hand. This is it. You make sure it's a bit overlapping. Not overlapping, but towards the other side. And you baste. You don't want it to be equal like this. It has to be a bit more than the inner side or the bodice itself, because this is the facing and it's the lapel side. So you take it, you arrange it, use your hand. Use your hand. This is the joining. You don't want the jackets to be showing, the lapel to be showing when you're done like this. So this is it. You baste till you get to where the break point or break line is. This is quite easy because we're using this Ankara fabric. And some fabric, you might need to really use your hand to control this facing. And we're done. And you have to do this before you iron it. So I can as well go ahead and use my thread and needle to secure this side to give it proper ironing, the down part, because I want it to be smooth. But this side, the facing is not overlapping or coming to the other side, so the facing is actually inside, and your bodice is covering it. So that's what we're going to do. When you're done with it, just stick it to the ironing board or table, then you iron, give it a good press. Then when you're done giving it a good press, take the lapel and you can iron, or you wait till you fix your collar, whichever one. But I like facing my collar before I do this ironing. So I'm going to iron this now and show us what it looks like. I'll do the same thing to the other side of the jacket. So I'm done ironing it. So this is what it looks like. This is it. This is it. So the next thing I'm going to do is to take the center back and take the side, then pin it down. I'm going to join the side. It's important you make sure the notches are aligned. So you take the notch, you can pin it down. So then you take the lining also. So you can see, that's why I said whatever allowance you're folding it has to be equal so that the lining also aligns. So this is it. You pin it down so that you sew ½ inch, which is the allowance that I left for this pattern. So I'm going to sew it ½ inch, then I'll do the same thing to the other side. So I have joined the side. This is what it looks like, and I've ironed it. The next thing I'm going to do is to join the shoulder, the bodies to the main bodies, then the lining to the lining. Then after that, I'm going to join the collar, the facing and the collar. I've gone ahead to join the collar at the center. Then I'm going to join the collar, close it, then I'll come back and show us how to fix it. So I've joined the shoulder. This is it. The next thing I'm going to do is to join the collar, but I wanted to show us where to join. So I'm going to, I've marked, going to join 1/2 inch from here to this place. Then I'll turn it, notch it, and baste it coming. Let me go iron it. Let me go sew it, I mean to say. So I've stitched the collar. I'm going to notch 3 marks. Notch here, this point, so that I can bring out the shape of the collar. So this is it. Make sure that this place is relaxed. I'm going to notch the center. Just kind of relax. So this is it. The next thing you're going to do is to baste it. Take your needle and thread. So it's important you do this before you iron it. Very important for you to do this before you iron it. So I'll go ahead and finish it then. Iron it. I've ironed the collar, but I want to fix this velvet trimmings on it. So I've gone ahead to stitch it. Then at this point, I need to sew this like this. But in order to have that sharp edge, this is what I'm going to do. I took my trimmings backward and I rolled this line here, so I'm going to stitch it like this. Then go ahead and fold and stitch. I have to make sure it's covered and cover this place. So we have this edge like this. Then I stitch this. So I'm going to stitch it. I'll do the same thing to the other edge. So I'm done stitching this velvet trimmings to the neck of the collar. So this is the side we are fixing to the bodies. So I'm going to stitch it down. So I've stitched the inner neckline of the collar. The next thing I'm going to do is to take the center back of the collar and get the center back of the jacket. Then I'm going to pin it down. Then you take it to the edge where this lapel starts from. Remember the part we notched after sewing out this, and you make sure the notching is half inch, the same measurements with this sewing here, so that by the time you fix in the collar you still sew half, everything will be equal. So you take it to this edge and arrange it and make sure it aligns. So this is it. I'm going to put it, so this is it here. I'm going to place it here, turn this like this, and pin it down. Then arrange the back also, like do the same thing to this side. Then use the lining to turn it. Pin the lining down too. So you're going to go in through the armhole, turn it like this. Turn it till you have this. So you're going to set the center back of the lining to the center back of the bodice and that of the collar. You pin it down. Do the same thing. Make sure the shoulder seam is also aligned to that of the shoulder seam of the bodice is also aligned with that of the lining. You pin it down. This is it. Then you set this properly. This is the edge of the collar. Towards the edge, you arrange this. Make sure it's properly set. So make sure they are equal. You don't want to have the collar higher or lower than the when you're done sewing. So this, you have to have an equal setting here, so that by the time you sew your half inch to align. So we'll do the same thing to this side. Making sure that the shoulder edge is aligned. The shoulder seam, I mean, that of the bodice and that of the lining is aligned. So this is it. So this is my edge of the collar. Going to set it also. You pin. The next thing you're going to do is to mark your half inch allowance and sew straight. Not straight, just follow the edge, the design of the neckline. So you're going to mark half inch, and sew. So this is it. I want to join it now. Then this is the edge of the lining, not lining, the collar, I mean to say. So this is it. This is where the notch is, and this is the edge of the collar in here. So I'm going to sew, follow the same ½ inch here like this, and sew to the end of the collar. So you make sure it's properly set. So I'm going to sew it. To the end. So I've stitched the neckline, the collar to the bodies. So the next thing, this is it. Next thing I'm going to do is to bring out, turn it to the front. So this is it. This is what it looks like. This is the edge, this is the other edge. So you make sure you cross check to see if they are aligning. This is the collar. The next thing I'm going to do, I want to fix this velvet trimming on the lapel. So I'm going to fix it to this point where I marked this chalk. So you're going to do the same thing. The way I'm going to do the same thing to this edge, the way I fixed this edge. Why I sewed this edge, I meant to say, I'm going to do it to this particular side to have this shape. So you sew to this point, then you take it back again and roll this, mark this angle. As you can see, mark it and stitch on it, then you turn. So I'll sew that. So this is it. You stitch, this is the, so I've stitched to this extent, this angle, you stitch it down, then you continue. So I'm going to place it like this, stitch, then stitch to the point where I want it to stop. So I am done stitching it. The next thing I'm going to do now is to go iron it. Then fold in this lapel like this. So you take the lapel and you iron. So the break point where it starts or stops at, place it on iron, then you iron your collar, then do the same thing to this one. That's what you do. Take it like this, and you to the break point or break line, you iron. So I'm going to do that. So I am done ironing it. The next thing I'm going to do is to turn this sleeve with the lining. It's a sleeveless jacket, so I'm going to turn it in. But before I do that, let me stitch all these loose edges here. So in order to close the armhole, what you're going to do is to take the shoulder of the lining, shoulder seam of the lining and shoulder seam of the bodies. See what I'm doing? Take it like this, put your hand through this part, second side of the armhole, then you turn it like this. This is it, like this. Turn it like this, then put your hand here to secure it. Then you can pin it. Shoulder seam of shoulder seam of lining and that of the bodies. You pin it. So I'm going to pin this, then I'll bring it out from the other side of the armhole. Then I brought it out. This is it. Then you take get the so the next thing you do after getting the shoulder, instead of putting the under bust points, which is the UP or the armhole, the down part of the armhole, you want to refer to it like that, but it is called UP. Instead of putting the pinning it together, first of all, just sew from the shoulder. This is the shoulder of the lining and the shoulder of the bodies, the Ankara. So just sew half an inch as you're sewing to keep taking you round to the armhole. So I'm going to stitch to this part, then when I get to this UP, this point, I'm going to turn it and show us how to continue stitching from there. So I am at the UP. This is it, this point. So I'm stitching it round. So I'm turning the lining till I get to the other side of the shoulder. So this is it. So this is the shoulder where I started from. So I'm going to stitch. Make sure your joinings are aligning. So I'm going to stitch to the shoulder. That's the shoulder. I don't know if this is clear enough. I'm going to stitch from this UP to the other side of the shoulder. So you measure half an inch, which is the seam allowance. So I'm done stitching it. The next thing I'm going to do is to notch it around. Notch it around and bring it out. So this is it. This is the armhole. The next thing I'm going to do is to baste it before I iron it. So I'm doing that. It's very important you baste it before ironing it. So I am done basting it. The next thing I'm going to do now to close the other side of the armhole, you're going to open the side. So I open up the side where the armhole needs to be closed. I'm going to go in, bring it out, bring out the the inside part of the jacket, turn it, so I am done turning it, bringing it out. So the next thing is to take the shoulder of the bodies and the shoulder of the lining, also right side facing right side, turn. So this is it. take it, turn it like this, and you can hold it from inside, turn it like this, and sew round also the armhole. So I'm going to stitch it. Place it and you mark your half an inch and you sew. So I am done turning it, stitching the armhole. Then this is it. The next thing I'm going to do now, this opening that I opened here, I'm going to stitch it with my machine. I close it to the extent where the machine can close it up to. Then the remaining one, I'm going to use my thread and needle to tack it. So this is what is left. So this is the whole remaining. I'm going to stitch it or use hemstay, black hemstay, to cover it. And after that, I will give it a very good press and will show us the finished product.